But hey, let's ask the group, how much caffeine is in 1 cup of coffee? That's not what we're talking about today, but Phil is going to get his checkup today. He's going to get his review from his test and make sure he's okay. I think he's good because he's here today, which is good. Now, what I will say is I don't know that you should drink this before you go to your cardiologist as a technique when you're over 50. When you're 25, that's fine.
All I simply said was it's probably not a good idea to have my Jen's going to give me a hard time because she hates the fact that I drink these Red Bulls. But I've got to, after here about an hour and 15 minutes, we're going to be reviewing my progress. And
with Red Bull.
And my blood pressure is probably going to be a little high.
So speaking of blood pressure, we're going to talk money today. We're going to talk about business processes and how you're monitoring your finance and kind of what you're doing to like manage your business. And this is going to be a sensitive subject. And the reason it's going to be sensitive is because you may be paying your team too much. You can't find employees to hire. You don't know what your margins are. Your cash flow is garbage, and you're stressed every time when you go home. How am I going to make payroll?
Yeah, we talk a lot of times. People talk about stress, and I said, no, real stress is you have $1 million payroll and you've got $950,000 in the bank. You know, I mean, there's, you know, the finances of your business. You got to follow your numbers to understand and to be able to make good, effective decisions as a leader and a manager. You've got to understand the financial side of your business, or you're flying blind. Much like when we work with clients or we have a new engagement, one of the first things we do is we have them complete an assessment that helps Dave and I understand how they receive communication. You've heard us talk about this before, how they receive communication, how they communicate best. It's just a real, it's a necessity, no doubt.
It is. And so let me ask you a question. If you're watching this, what processes do you have in place to know how much you're selling, what your costs are, what your net is, what your employee cost, and what % of that is of your overall sales? There is a point in every company where you have fixed costs for employees. I mean, you have to have one employee, right? So you got to have that cost. You got to sell enough to pay that employee. That employee may be you, right? As your business grows, you need more employees. The question is are you balancing your employee growth with your business growth? We have seen companies overgrow and put themselves in a bad position. I'm strongly recommending you, if you're not watching those numbers and what it's doing to your margin with your current revenue, then you need to start watching it.
And there's also stuff that's out of your control, obviously.
Sure.
I mean, if you've been, for example, I was just reading, we're doing a little remodel at the house. Sorry, little remodel at the house, and lumber. Of course, I'm the only person in the world that's so smart that I decided to do a remodel, and lumber costs are up 400%, the highest they've ever been. But that's another story for another live stream. But
you know, I'm paying people in wood chips now. They'll take them.
That and ammo.
Yeah, well, yeah.
but I had a buddy say, "Hey, you got any 9mm ammo?" I said, "I don't know. You got $1 million?" But no, but it's you know, you've got to. There's times when you can't. You've always got to try to have controlled growth for financial reasons, for a lot of reasons, quality reasons. But there are those times when you just, you know, you're not going to say no. Quit sending me orders, right? But this is why tracking your finances are so important and being out ahead of it, so that you can hopefully forecast, look at key performance indicators, look at KPIs, so you'll know kind of what you need to do, so you're not caught where you have to make those urgent decisions, because that's when you get yourself into troubles, when you're putting out fires every day.
So let's talk about some steps and processes you can put in place. So most small businesses don't have a bookkeeper. They do it themselves. Most small businesses aren't leveraging technology as they should be to help this be easier. So first step, figure out what software you're going to use for your point of sale system. Figure out what software you're going to use for your accounting software. And it may be an Excel sheet, and that's okay for right now.
Probably will be an Excel sheet when you first start.
And that's okay.
If you're a startup.
If you're using an Excel sheet, go on Google, find a profit and loss statement, find a balance sheet with titles that can help you lay out your spreadsheet, and then take the data from your sales system and all of your bills and ensure they put into that spreadsheet. look at your pay period. So if you're buying from a supplier, how often are you paying them? If they deliver something to you today, is it pay on delivery? Or are you a net 15 days, 30 days? Second question, if you're working B2B, what is your net on your bills? Are they paying you upon completion of the work? Are they paying you a portion before the work? Or are they paying you at some period after the work is done? This is probably the biggest thing that gets businesses in trouble. They don't manage their cash flow, and you have bills due before you're paid by a client.
Yeah, and the industry is going to dictate
absolutely
a lot of how that works for you. I mean, we've got clients in industries that, I mean, it's crazy. It's 60 days. It's not, traditional 60 to 90 days before they get paid, but they're on 30-day terms on payables. The receivables are 60 to 90, and that really creates a significant challenge, obviously, for folks. But the reality is you gotta start early. You got to understand your industry. You got to understand your needs, and then you can build your plan to make sure that the cash flow, because that's what we're really talking about here, is cash flow, is appropriate for what your needs are. Cash flow cripples more businesses than anything. It's not we don't have a good product. It's not that we know our service isn't that great. 9 times out of 10, it's cash flow, especially when you're in that startup or early stage of a business. Cash flow will just destroy growth and opportunities for a lot of people.
Great comment, Darren. For B2B, offer a small discount for immediate payment, 2 to 5%. Darren, great input on that. I really love that idea. I appreciate that, brother. One of the things I would also like to offer is, there's a really easy way to manage your spreadsheet and understand your costs. That's, go through your expenses, divide them by your total revenue, and see what percentage of your revenue goes to that expense.
Yeah.
Because you may find some quick things you can fix by knowing that percentage. That personnel cost is 70% of your expense. So you have 2 choices: cut people or increase sales. Those are your 2 choices, right? And you can make a thoughtful decision for the company in that way. If you know you're growing and you need those people, okay, then you got to start pumping up the sales team and get them selling more, right? If the market's flat, then maybe it's time to let some people go and manage those costs. One of the things you got to think about too, if you're hiring people right now, and I said it earlier, labor costs are going up.
Big time.
I mean, Walmart and McDonald's are paying $10 to $15 an hour for people to come work at McDonald's or Walmart.
Heck, we were somewhere the other day, my bride and I, and I saw a sign posted that says receive a $1,000. It was a fast food restaurant. Receive a bonus, a signing bonus when you join the team. And it was like $1,000.
That's a lot of money.
That's all. I mean,
for
that industry.
For a service industry, that's a lot of money.
Yeah. So it's tough. Everywhere you look, people are looking for employees. Talked to a good friend last week. One of the number one challenge they have is finding good quality employees. Yep. And there's a lot of factors right now to that. I mean, it's always tough, and some industries are more tough than others. But right now, with many folks choosing to, just to be honest, stay on unemployment instead of going back to work, it's created a huge vacuum in labor force. I mean, it's been bad. And now that's going to end, because I think today, is it today?
26th of June for Oklahoma, but that's state dependent. Governors are driving it. That's not, the feds are keeping it out there for a while. States are driving that. One of those things, and this is kind of off the financial side, but it's just good being a good human being. If you go in a restaurant and you're waiting on service, be gracious, be polite. The restaurant industry right now is getting their backside kicked, finding good employees.
Well, and there's also so many rules right now, right? Now we got to get back on track with financials, but there's so many rules right now, depending on that individual franchise, that individual private business, that's saying, hey, this is our standard for how we want people to, we're referring about the pandemic. So it puts a lot of additional stress on those frontline workers that are simply following the directives given to them by their ownership groups. But be patient. Grace goes a long ways in times like this.
All right, so financials isn't fun to talk about. I mean, it's not.
That sucks, but again, if you don't know the numbers, you don't know your business.
So let's do this for you. I want you to do this at a minimum. I want you to set up every other week at a minimum. Every other week. I know this is like taking cough medicine. Every other week at a minimum, I want you to look at your profit and loss statement and make sure your books are where they're supposed to be. Make sure everything's input like it's supposed to be. Find out why it's not if it's not. That way you don't get behind. Okay. That way you understand potential problems as before they arise. That way you set yourself up for financial success to know where to put your effort into, right? We talked about the different pieces of a business: sales, marketing, sales, product development, people. Your finances is kind of your KPI for performance of how the business is doing health-wise. So every other week, manage that. Take a look at it. Talk to your team about it. Make sure they understand where you are. Make sure your sales are where they are and what you can do to improve it.
We got, anybody that works with us, we review these financial numbers with every one of our clients constantly. And most entrepreneurs, if you're an entrepreneur, it's one of the things they hate doing because it's not fun.
It sucks.
I mean, it's not fun. You got to sit down. It's also, and again, I know I always say this, because when you're really looking at the financials, you're really stripping down naked.
Yeah, I mean, you can see the health of it real quick.
Real quick. And so it's not a good time because you're sitting there going, well, geez, in my mind, we're doing great, but my numbers say we're doing okay or we're not doing okay. And then you have to deal with that reality. We've talked about SMART goals in the past. We've talked about, this is a big part of that. You gotta make sure financially things are as you believe they are and as you want them, or you can't take the necessary steps to fix things when there's challenges. And there's going to be challenges. There's not, there's so many things that's out of your control. You can do all the right things, and there's still stuff that's out of your control. So you've got to be doing the basic fundamentals of business correctly, because that's something that you do control, right? Everything in life and in business is about focusing on the things you control. Sorry, I just got a post from our friend Matt. He's an engineer. Matt's one of the smartest guys I've ever met. But he said, I like numbers. I actually like numbers, and he does. But Matt's without question a process-driven, logic-driven human being where he can look at it and say, okay, I need to do this, this, and this. But Matt is a unicorn when it comes to this topic because most people just run from that. They want to live over here in the emotion and the feel good and what happened lately. So yeah, I didn't have a very good week, but we just closed a big deal. So let's just focus on the new client and we'll talk about how great that is, and we'll ignore all this stuff. So that's the big thing, is that it's finding that happy medium. Dave and I in our businesses, I'm more of the emotional, obviously the more of the feel good stuff. Dave's more of what keeps us grounded and centered on saying, well, yeah, that's fun and that's nice, but so he's a big buzzkill. These guys are big buzzkills, right? But it's necessary. Now, it doesn't mean that you can have somebody like that lives on the side like where I live, that they don't understand the other side. It's just that that's not what they enjoy, right? And as human beings, we naturally are going to want to do the things that we enjoy. I mean, that's how it is. So it's about figuring out a process. That's again why SMART goals and really walking those out are so important. Is that's your roadmap, that's your compass.
So personality drives a lot of what you do too, right? So if you're a highly interactive person, being around people, and you aren't a process person, that's okay. That's why you build smart tools to help you track, right? And you do the minimum you have to do to be successful, but you have that bumper to keep you going down the right path. On the same token, if you're a high C or high D person who's very process focused and not as people focused, you've got to build things on the people side to make sure you're not getting buried in your computer and in the data all the time, because the high I's and the high D's, the high C's and the high I's, they'll do this, and it kills your business. So it's a matter of figuring out how to balance. And that's why I say, if you're not a process person, that's not your thing, Find somebody to build a process for you, and then every other week, take a look at that stuff with them and make sure you understand what you're seeing.
Now, I would say this too, because I want to make sure we're clear on this. Being a process-driven person is wonderful, especially in business.
It helps.
Well, I mean,
and so you're a people person,
right? But I'm just saying, without a process, you can be the people person all you want. You're going to hug yourself into bankruptcy. You know, I mean, you've got to understand your numbers, and you got to have processes so it's a repeatable success flow for your employees. What I would say is this, you know, the most important thing is to understand how you process and who you are. Once you understand that, which is what Dave was just saying, then you can build out around that and create a real effective team. You know, it's like fitness goals, right?
Yeah.
Fitness goals, is it about looking good and fit? Well, yeah, but what it's really about is your mental and emotional health. I mean, if you're eating better, you're going to feel better. If you're moving your body, whatever that looks like, you're going to feel better. You're going to be able to handle these inevitable challenges that are going to come your way in personal life and in your business life. But you've got to have a good, solid, hug yourself into bankruptcy. But you've got to have, you've got to be able to be able to fight every day, right? You know, the warrior, in my mind, I'm still the same warrior I was when I was in my 20s. Now, my wife laughs at me when I say that, but in my mind, I am. I'm not, but in my mind, I am. And so you got to balance that belief, and that's a good belief to have, but you got to balance that and ground it in reality and a process that's going to allow you to still get the end result you want. And that's, I think, where a lot of people fall short is they don't understand that, like, using it as an example, fitness is really about emotional, mental health. Yeah, it's about feeling better. It's about looking better. It's about, you know, having more energy. It's about sleeping better. It's about all the things that better health brings you. But it's really about your mental and your emotional health.
So I want you to think about something. I'm going to use a scenario that you have seen or been a part of in your life. How many people have you met or know that are in a tough marriage? They're struggling. They end up split. They're both out of shape. They both have really bad, unhealthy habits. They're both just not taking care of themselves. And then one day something happens and they split up. We're talking about finance and health and everything else, but the reality of it is that is the best example. Typically, those people, they're so motivated because their life has changed. They get in the best shape of their life. They go back to, I've seen it 1,000 times. They didn't address the core problem in their life, which was probably money and personality in their life, in their business, right? Personality conflicts or disagreements and money. That's why when we talk about financials drives one of the biggest stressors on a family, on your life, on everything you do, everything. So we're talking around a little bit, but I want you to really understand, if you're not managing those financials on a bi-weekly basis, understanding where you are and have goal setting, not being disciplined, you will get yourself in a position where you get unhealthy, where you're making bad decisions, where your marriage starts falling apart, where your friends don't talk to you anymore, and your life goes on a track you don't want it to. And we don't want that for anybody. And we want to help you understand where your pitfalls are and how to get you out of it, and little steps you can take every day to get better.
Yeah, because again, what's most important, in my opinion, it's the relationships you have in life and the relationship you have with yourself.
Yep.
I mean, if you don't have a good relationship with yourself, so if you're, a good example is, have you ever met somebody, we all have, that does this constant negative self-talk?
Yep.
Where they're not giving themselves a break. They're just beating the tar out of themselves. I know you are. Just beating the tar out of themselves. And you've got to get to a point to where the words you say to yourself matter.
Yeah.
Now, don't live in a fairy tale world. That's not what we're saying. But the truth is you can have challenges and still 90% of your life is great. So don't say things like, well, today's terrible, because you had one, for example, it's 4 o'clock, you've had a great day, something goes off the rails at 4 o'clock. So now you're saying, wow, today's just been a complete waste. That's not true. That's not true. You had something come along that maybe kicked you in the head. Deal with it, figure it out, get a plan, execute, correct it, move on. I mean, it is what it is. And I think part of that comes too from having unrealistic expectations of how your life's going to go. You know, I'll hear people tell us, I just want a day where I don't have any problems. Well, the only place I know where people don't have problems is at the cemetery. They all live there. All the problems are over for those guys or those gals. But you've got to realize that having challenges, having things come up that you're not expecting, screwing up, making bad decisions, doing things you regret, unfortunately, that's all part of being a human being. And it's about how you're going to react to that.
So this is interesting. We're kind of sideboarding on the financials, but it drives everything. I mean, that stress of money drives all the stress of life. Dr. Robert Evans, I'm reading a devotional by him right now. Actually, this was today, so feeling pretty good. And he says this about success. He says, many people do not envision success as it really is. They're looking for fireworks, glitz, and one big resounding stadium of applause. That ain't what it is, folks. Success is defining goals, reaching those goals, staying on track, not chasing squirrels, right? Not chasing every good idea. I mean, we all do it. We see a new idea, oh, we're going to go to it. It's figuring out where you want to be in 5 years, setting up a plan for success, and executing that plan to success daily, realizing some days you're going to mess up. And how do you step up? Hey, you know what? I screwed that up. That's behind me. Let's move forward. So you're going to make a bad financial decision in your business. You're going to make a bad hiring decision in your business. You're going to mess up your books. Fix it. Make the correction. Have the guts to do the right thing and move forward. And work towards that one common goal. I know there's people on here right now that have some pretty incredible goals, and they're working towards them right now. But don't ever lose sight of what your goal is, and don't get caught chasing things that don't matter. Don't think that success is some big tip or take parade, because it's not.
You know, Jennifer, who's one of our favorite people, she has posted something. We meet every Monday and have kind of a deep dive. I think we all communicate probably every day of the week, but we have a deep dive on Monday with Jen, and I know she wouldn't mind us sharing this, but she said for sure the other day when you casually talked about bad business partners or bad business deals, and you were so casual about it, it really resonated with me, because I was like, I want to get to the point where I'm that casual about the bad. And unfortunately or fortunately, that is where Dave and I are now in our lives. But the only way you usually get there is you were the opposite at some point. And through experience and just living through things, you learn that, hey, this isn't the end of the world. This is going to be okay. You know, yeah, I don't like it. It sucks, but it is what it is. And you can either let it destroy your entire day, or you can say, okay, this is a moment, a quick moment. This is what happened. Okay, I'm going to figure out a solution. I'm going to move forward. You know, don't give bad things or challenging times residency between your ears. Just don't do it, because it will steal you of the greatest thing you have, which is your time, your passion, and your energy. Just stay on track. You know, to Dave's point too about the financials, it's not the big fancy stuff that matters. It's the little boring stuff that matters. And you put all those little boring things together and you have success. You know, we are always looking for the big sexy thing, the big exciting thing, you know, like the gentleman said, you know, the big stadium full of applause. You know, I mean, come on now. I mean, let's be realistic in what life is. You know, life is what you make it, first of all. And it begins with what you're telling yourself. And then it goes from what you're telling yourself to the goals that you've set. And from those goals, it's the actions you take, the tactics and the strategies to execute on those goals, and then doing it consistently and having a realistic expectation that, hey, some days I'm going to be an eagle, some days I'm going to be a duck. I've said this a million times. You just got to fly more than you quack, and you're going to be successful. I mean, you've got to do those things. It doesn't mean you live in some Pollyanna world, but what it does mean is you got to give yourself a break mentally and emotionally when these things come up.
Yeah, so if you haven't read the book Compound Effect, it talks about consistency in daily life and how that matters. I'm going to ask you today to work on your financial consistency. Today, your goal out of this next week, before we talk again, is to get a process set up where you are bi-monthly looking at your financials and taking consistent actions in a positive direction. Do it for 2 quarters. So that would be 8 weeks, or excuse me, 8 weeks, that's wrong. 12 weeks, 2 quarters, 24 weeks, so half the year, 26 weeks, half the year. Do it. After the first quarter, look at where you are. After the second quarter, look where you are. It's not that many meetings, guys. It's not that much stuff. It's 13 reviews of your financials. 13. That's it.
What Dave and I see too with our clients, and we usually see it before they see it themselves, is we'll see the progress people are making, right? We'll see the steps that they have taken. We'll see all the great things that are going on, and they're still, because if you're amongst the trees, it's hard to see anything else, right? I mean, so you've got to really allow people to be your cheerleader and your eyes on a lot of these things, especially when you're talking about, you know, installing new processes or new goals. You got to allow people to help you understand, okay, this is good. You're making good progress here. This is better than it was. You know, I don't know, you know, it's little simple things. It just, you know, I'll give you an example. Like yesterday, we're unloading drywall at our house. And Tanya goes, what's that red sticker over by the new fireplace? Well, it was a failed inspection sticker. I didn't even know they came and inspected it. And I'm like, well, when did they come out and do this? And it says June 10th. Well, that was last Friday. Nobody told me we failed. I didn't even know we had an inspection. So I got on the phone, started working through it, figured out what was going on. I've got other contractors that are coming out that we have to get these passed before the other contractors do the work. Anybody that's ever worked with contractors know they're very busy. So if you can get them out scheduled to be at your place, you want to make sure they're there, because you might lose 2-3 weeks just waiting to get them back out. And so last night about 8:30, I'm on the phone with 3 different people doing a conference call. You know, we worked through it, and everybody was wanting to apologize and explain what happened. I said, guys, it doesn't matter. I'm not mad. We got to figure out a solution to the problem. And once we figure it out, we'll have a plan in place, then we can execute on it, then we can move on. And so, you know, now the alternative to that is I could have freaked out, only been focused on the fact that something failed inspection, be mad about it, want to go get a pound of flesh because somebody didn't do their job. What does that solve? It doesn't solve anything. You're still right where you were before. Same's true with business, right? You know, you're going to have those days where you fail an inspection, right? You screw up a client interaction, or you mess up delivery of a product or a service, or whatever the case may be. You know, how do you react to it? It's happened. We're going to address it, and we're going to move forward. And again, talking about the financial side of this, if you're paying attention to your numbers, then that allows you to eliminate the possibility of those kind of things, or at least to reduce, I should say eliminate. It allows you an opportunity to reduce the times where that's going to have a true negative effect on your business.
So I'm gonna give you a scenario, because it's one that Phil and I see every so often. You hire these 2 guys, they come into your business and they go, hey, let's look at your financials. You're like, financials? What do you mean? And okay, which software you use? And that's how the conversation goes. They tell us, okay, run these 2 reports. And we look at the reports, and we go through the reports, and we go, this doesn't make sense. And we start asking questions, right? And at the end of the meeting, you realize over the last quarter, you have misspent $500,000.
We've seen it.
$1 million.
Yeah, we've seen those numbers. Yeah.
How do you handle it, right? What do you do? Now, some people get really upset. Okay. They have a right to get upset. Some people look for what happened and how to fix it. That's probably the right choice. Others just sit on their hands and go, I don't know what to do, right?
So I'll do nothing.
So I'll do nothing. So what I'm telling you, the reason I'm sharing the story with you is because we've seen it enough for me to tell you this. I want you to go look at your financials this week. I want you to look at your profit and loss and your balance sheet. Then I want you to look, when you look good, it's about 20 minutes ago, I want you to understand what are your biggest expenses and how are they impacting you. Does anything look out out of ordinary from month to month. So run a monthly report, right, for last year, and just compare the numbers. Are there any significant increases in expenses or sales that don't make sense? Just do that for right now. Start trying to understand what your numbers are telling you. Because once you start understanding your numbers, every 2 weeks, you'll see anomalies, things that don't look right. I mean, I flew airplanes my whole life. We basically look at 1,000 people walk in a cockpit, everybody goes, how do you memorize all that? Well, you don't. You look for what normal looks like. And then when it's not normal, you memorize what normal looks like. When it's not normal, it pops out like a sore thumb. And you go, that engine's not running right. We need to shut it down, right? Or we need to do this. I'm asking you to do the same thing in your business. Establish what normal, financial normal is for your business. So when you look at your numbers, you go, this is what I should expect to see.
Yep.
The next month, when it's not normal, you go, that doesn't make sense. What happened? It may be a keying error. Maybe something it may be somebody stealing from you on the other end of the spectrum.
Seen both.
But at least you know what normal is, and now you can recognize when something abnormal happens.
Yeah, that's great advice, Dave. I mean, because there's so much you got to keep up with. There's so much you have to do. So you got to have these hacks, if you will,
yep,
in place so that you can respond accordingly. We've had times we pulled up people's financial data in our conference room to review it with them, and we're looking through it, and something just jumps out like a sore thumb, and it's just there in front of you, and you're like, okay, what the daylights is that?
Yep.
But it's because of what Dave just described. You know what normal should be, so when something's not normal, you really notice it, and you're able to take the right action that you need to take to get it fixed. And again, that's the bottom line: is how do you get it fixed?
Yep.
There's plenty of time to go back and say, and you do want to look at how it happened, because that's where you can tweak processes, change things you need to change, to say, hey, we don't want this to happen again. So what can we implement that's going to make sure, or again, give us the best possibility of eliminating that from being a reality in the future?
That's fact. I mean, that's a fact. So these little hacks will help you be more efficient as a business owner. They'll help you sleep better at night because you'll know what's going on and you won't have to worry about it. They'll also help you build a stronger team when they know what normal looks like and they're working towards doing the right thing and increasing the areas that need to be worked on to get better. Because we're always refining as business owners. The environment's always changing.
Better be.
Yeah, and you never know what the economy is going to do, so you always got to be planning for tomorrow, right? So keep moving forward that way.
Well, the last thing I would want to add, Dave, is also know this: your financials are going to, you can't ignore what your financials tell you.
No.
And what I mean by that is, no matter how bad, you don't want to make tough decisions. And to me, the toughest decision any business owner has to make outside of it's time to shut the business down is laying somebody off.
Yep.
It's horrible. It's gut wrenching. It's terrible. If you've ever had to do it, it is the definition of a bad freaking day. It truly is, because, the consequence to that individual, if they have a family, to their family, I mean, there's all these consequences. So it's terrible. Doesn't change the fact that sometimes you have to do that. And if your numbers are telling you that, and you walk through it with your support system and your leadership team, and you all come to the realization that we have to do this, then guess what? You have to do this. And it sucks. I mean, there's nothing good about it, but you've got to listen to what your numbers are telling you.
Yep.
Now you got to look at the numbers, and then you got to verify with good thought process as a leadership team or as a leader to make sure that you're checking it, right? You don't want to go off half-cocked and then find out it was a data entry mistake and you just laid somebody off because there was a data entry mistake. So I'm saying be thoughtful in the process, but when you have confirmed that, yeah, this is what needs to happen, then you got to walk that out. Now, same thing's true when you're hiring people, because hiring more people can be as scary, depending on where you're at in business, as laying somebody off, because now you're saying, okay, well, my numbers tell me I need to go hire another sales rep and 2 more people in operations, right? Or I need to go hire, I've got all these sales, so I need to go hire more operational folks. Well, that comes as an expense. And so that's scary also. So the good news is you get to have fun and create this great business. The bad news is it's much like being in the military. It's a whole lot of boredom mixed in with sheer terror for a few seconds, right? So there's a lot of decisions that you need to make that people on the outside would go, well, I don't see how that's a problem. Well, it brings stress. It brings additional challenges. So, but you got to listen to what your numbers are telling you.
All right, Phil, we've talked about financials for 35 minutes. I'm pretty sure there's somebody that's going to stick a fork in the road.
We need an intervention.
We need an intervention.
Yeah,
hey, we've talked about this a lot. You've got the basic plan. Look, to figure out what normal is, look at your stuff every 2 weeks. Review it. If you have questions, reach out to us. We'd love to help. We are here for you. With that, Dave and Phil and EXSIN Live, this episode, we are out of here.